Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So happy that you decided to tune into this video. So we've been having a few problems with uploading videos and recording, editing, the whole nine. Basically, my hard drive went out while I was uploading a video. It just decided to stop working. So there was that, and then when I tried to record another video and then upload videos onto my laptop, then my movie editing program decided that I wanted to continue to shut off, and then when I did it on a different computer, then it decided that okay, I'm gonna give you the sound, but I'm not gonna give you the video. So it was a few issues going on, but I'm working through them and I'm working to resolve them so that I can try to have those other videos for you. Here we are recording a new video, and we're just gonna have a little chat today. So one of the things that's super common is people want to know, how do you become a TV news producer? For those of you guys who don't know, I have been a TV news producer for a few months now, and it's definitely been a ride, and it will continue to be a ride as the news cycle just continues to go up and down, up and down. But you know, a lot of people don't really know how to become a TV news producer, so I thought I'd share my story and how I became a producer. We're going to talk about my schooling, we're going to talk about the jobs that I've held in journalism and how I got to this point as a TV news producer, and along the way hopefully pick up some tips. And also I'm just going to give you some pointers of things that I noticed that I needed to have, or things that I wish I had, things that I wish that I knew when it came to producing. So if you're interested, if you want to know, if you want to be a TV news producer, then this story is definitely for you. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so first things first, I graduated from school in the summer of 2018. I graduated from Florida International University, and before that I went to Miami-Dade College. I went to a community college for 2 years, and then I transferred to a university. But during my 2 years there, I studied journalism, and then when I transferred to FIU, then that is when I stuck with journalism, I think for my first semester, or maybe even a little past that. And then I decided to switch to broadcast journalism. And in that major there is broadcast journalism, but there's two different tracks, and I chose the TV production track because during that time I was also working at a newspaper down here in Miami, and I have been writing for newspapers since, I've been writing for newspapers for a few years. And what I wanted was, I just wanted to get more experience in editing and video and things like that, because I knew that that's where the whole market was going. I knew that's what, even as a print reporter, you needed to know how to do those sorts of things. So that's why I switched to broadcast media, TV production. In that track, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about editing. I learned a lot about shooting interviews. The thing is though, there was a lot of things that I didn't learn. In order to be able to work in the industry, there were things that I was missing. For example, how to write for broadcast. There really was nothing on how to produce. Not even that my mind was there at the time, but looking back now, those are things that I did not learn. Like, I can't say that I took anything from my time at college into the job that I'm working now. And if I can think of something, I'll let you know, but so far I can't say that I really took anything major that's really helping me now. I really didn't. Into my final semester at FIU, it was during the summer, so it was an accelerated kind of thing, and it took up a lot of my time. At that point I was like, I don't really want to do print newspapers anymore. I just didn't want to do that anymore. And so I stupidly quit my job and I was like, I'm just gonna focus on school and knock this out, and that's just what I'm gonna do. And so I left my job, and it felt good to have that freedom, because while I was working and going to school at the same time, it was a lot of going back and forth, and it was a lot of it was just a lot at that time. And so I went on ahead and I finished out my college education, and I graduated and everything like that. And then once I graduated, I was like, you know, I need a job. And you know, while I was in that period where I was gonna graduate, I was thinking about what I was gonna do for a job, but I really wasn't sure where I wanted to be, because for a while I felt like I knew that I wanted to be in journalism. I want to be a writer. That's what I want to do. But I think moving to broadcast media really kind of broadened my scope a little bit. So there were just a lot of different options of what I could do. So when I graduated and I realized I needed a job, I was like, look, I'm going to freelance for now. So I was going to freelance. I wanted to have freedom, and I wanted to be able to work from home and all of those great things and make a lot of money, because I saw that freelancers could make a lot of money. So when I got into it, I spoke to some people about freelancing, and they were like, you know, the goal is to get you a job. And I'm like, no, the goal is to successfully freelance. And somebody else was like, yeah, because, you know, you're not going to freelance forever. And I was like, no, I am going to freelance forever. So basically it was just a whole lot of stuff going on at the time, and I was just really trying to figure out what I was going to do. So I went back to the newspaper that I was working for, basically as a freelancer, and then the editor offered me a position as a copy editor. And I was like, I need to take it because, you know, I need a job, basically, like an actual job. Freelancing just wasn't cutting it for me, because the pay was too sparse, and it just wasn't consistent. Even though you were working, you didn't see the fruit of your labor until maybe a month later or something like that. So it just wasn't feasible, you know, in order to be able to pay or save and things like that. It just wasn't working. So I went back to the newspaper and I worked there for a few months. And while I was working there, I also picked up another job as a teacher's assistant at a school. While I was doing that, I also picked up a gig as a tutor, and I did that for a little bit too. So at that point, I had fairly decent money coming in. First off, if you know anything about journalism, you know that you are not going to be rolling in dough. You are not going to be super rich unless you're at a certain point in your career. Just starting out, definitely you are not going to be making a lot of money. That's just the industry. Anybody who's going into the industry knows that, or at least they should know that. If they don't know that, they need to get to know that, because it definitely is something that can determine your lifestyle, and it's something that you have to decide for yourself, that if this is what you want to do, then this is what I'm going to do, and this is the way that I'm going to be able to live, and this is what I'm going to need to do in order to be able to live the way that I want to live. I hope that makes sense. So I picked up another job, like I said, as a teacher's assistant, and I was also working as a tutor. So I had different income coming in from different ways, and I was still in the midst of figuring out what I wanted to do, because I knew that I did not want to stay at the newspaper, because I just felt it, like I didn't want to stay there. I didn't really want to do that, but I wasn't going to make the same decision that I made before. I wasn't going to be dumb and just quit just quit because I didn't want to be there anymore. I knew that I needed to stay there until I found something better, and I never found anything better at that point, because I ended up getting fired. This was right before New Year's of 2019. So yeah, this is right before New Year's of 2019, literally a few days before New Year's. And I found out very suddenly, but when my editor came into the room where all the reporters are, and she said, she asked if she could speak to me, I just kind of knew that I was going to get fired. I knew before that too, because I had asked if I was going to get something that I realized everybody else was getting, and my editor said, I don't know, we'll see. And I was like, something is wrong. Something is wrong. And once she called me out, I knew that was a wrap, and it definitely was. And so the situation, everybody was like, okay, I get fired. I got fired plenty of times, but it was my first time being let go from a job, especially in my industry. And so it kind of hit, at first it didn't really hit me, but it hit me when I went back on my last day and I had to train the girl who was replacing me. Oh, so yeah. So from there, I was like, okay, I'm gonna freelance, and that's what I was gonna do. And I did it for a little while. And then I saw that there was a local journalism, black journalist group down here that I had previously been a part of before. But they were having a career fair. I went to the career fair, I think the previous year or the year before, and it was really great. So I was like, I'll go. Before that, I heard about job openings as a TV writer at the station that I'm currently at. And I almost applied, but I didn't, because I was like, I don't know if this is really, I just didn't know if that was what I wanted to do. If I really even wanted to go into that industry, into broadcast in that way. So, but after thinking about it for some time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go here. That station was gonna be at that job fair, and I was gonna be like, okay, I want to be a TV writer, and let's see what happens. So the job fair was on a Saturday morning. I almost didn't go, but I decided to go. And when I got there, I, of course, signed in and everything. I was running a little late because I had to print my resumes that morning. And so there was a table there after I went to register. There was a table there, and they were doing resume critiques. There was nobody there. There was just a lady sitting there, and I was like, you know, why not? So I went on ahead and I sat down. The lady looked at my resume and she pointed some things out to me, etc., etc. Another lady came in. I'd seen her before as part of the organization. I'd met her probably one time, just probably once. And she was a producer at the time at the station that I'm currently working at. So I had told them that I wanted to be I had told the other lady that I wanted to be a news writer, and so she had told the other lady, and she was like, oh, you know, such and such is always hiring writers. And I was like, yeah. So she went over my resume. She gave me some really good tips, some really good pointers, and then she was like, have you been inside the fair yet? And I was like, no, because at that point nobody could go inside yet. They were hosting like workshops and things like that, and then after that people could go inside. So she took me inside. Nobody else was in there. She took me to the table of the station. She introduced me to the HR people. She basically, you know, was like, you know, take their cards, here's my email, here's my number, go online, fill out the application. Once you do that, let me know, email me your resume, and I'll forward it to the executive producer of the morning show. Once I left there, I knew I was gonna get the job. I felt it, and really just the way everything happened, it was just so seamless and so easy, and it was like, I'm gonna get this job. But even though I felt like I knew it, I still didn't want to play it up so much in my mind, because it was like, what if I don't get it? But I knew it that I was gonna get it. So I went inside the workshops that they were doing. Excellent workshops, of course. And I sat in there, and then they were letting people go inside the job fair. And I was like, I don't really need to go inside because I already got a job, but I really didn't get the job yet. But I was like, I'm gonna get this job. So I kind of sat with myself for a moment and was like, look, either you can go in and get some more stuff, or you can just have complete and total faith that you did get this position like you feel that you did. And I really felt like I did. Plus I didn't want to talk to people, so I left. But then after that happened, come that Monday, because it was a Saturday, come that Monday, I emailed her my resume and everything like that. And then she forwarded it, and then she was like, you'll get a phone call in a few days. So that was the week of Savior's Day 2019, and I went on a plane to travel to Chicago. It was Chicago that year. And while we were in the rental car driving to the hotel, I got a call, and it was the executive producer who's my EP now, for the show. And he was like, can you come in such and such day, such and such time? Okay, I'll see you then. Got the interview. And also on that, I think it was that same day, later that day, I got a text from the principal of the school that I was working at part-time. And she texted me and she was like, you know, we're having trouble paying our teachers and things like that. So until we get this resolved, basically just don't come in until we get it resolved. Little did I know she was really firing me. It took somebody else to point it out to me to realize that I had been fired. And so I was like, that's fine. Okay, that's fine, whatever. And so when I went to my interview, I believe it was that Wednesday. I returned from Savior's Day on a Monday. So I had a day to prepare. And I did the interview that Wednesday. So I was working with another producer, who the lady who got me the interview, she introduced me to another producer to help me with like my writing and things like that, because the writing was so different. Like, even though I can write for print, writing for broadcast is a very, very, very different thing than writing for print. So I had to get used to it. So she helped me out a little bit, and then not a little bit, she helped me out a lot. Like, she took some time out, and she helped me, even while I was still working there. Like, shout out to her. I went on ahead and I did my interview, and then the first part of the interview was the writing test. So if you become a news writer at a station, or do an interview to become one, you're going to take a writing test. So I took a writing test, and it was basically transforming a news article into a script. So he asked me to do like 3 of those. So I did them, and he took me out into the newsroom where his desk was, and he corrected everything with me, and he was like, okay. He also asked me some like current event questions. He asked me who the Vice President of the United States was. He asked me some national things, other national things, and then he asked me some things that were happening locally. So I pretty much got everything national correctly. I got a few things right locally, but I paid more attention to national news than I did local news. So he was telling me, okay, you know, just pay attention to this, that, whatever. And then he had me to go back and do the writing test again. He was like, either you can fix this now and we'll do it now, or you can take it home and do it and come back, or you can take it home and email it to me, whatever the case may be, or you can just come back another day. And I was like, no, I'm gonna do it now, because I just didn't have the patience for everything else. So I did it again, and I got the job. And yeah, so that was back in March of 2019. I started March 1st, actually. And that was basically how I got to become a news writer. That's how I stepped my foot into becoming a person who worked in broadcast media. Now, how did I become a producer? That's another story. So becoming a producer, I didn't always want to become a producer. As I was working, very early on while I was working, I decided that I wanted to become a producer. And so what ended up happening is that when you become a news writer, you start off on the early morning shift. My shift, and this is part-time, my shift was 2:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. So you're a writer during that shift. And I stayed there for about a month, and then I moved up to the noon and weekend shift. The noon shift was from about 8 a.m. or 7:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. The weekend shift was 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. So basically, during the noon shift, because one of the girls who I was working with was doing this, she would go upstairs during the show at 12, because there was nothing for us to do at that point, because the show, we'd written everything, all of that. So we would go upstairs, and I would sit with the producer, and she would sit with the technical director, because that's what she wanted to do. So I would sit with the producer, and that's when I really learned a lot about producing, and she taught me a lot. And sometimes she would like let me pick out things to go into the show, and which was really cool. And And yeah, so I learned a lot from there. And then from there, I moved up to the dayside shift. Dayside was from about 1 p.m. to 6:30. One day it was 7, but around there. And at that point, when you move shifts, you see different people. So you get used to being with some people, but then when you move a shift, you have to get used to being with other people. So I didn't really know many of the producers on that shift, except for one from the Black journalist group, and the other one was a producer who was helping me before with my writing. So I didn't know anybody, and so I was just writing. I didn't go upstairs with any producers because I didn't know them. And so the producer who was helping me with my writing, I was writing her show. So she would come to me. One time she came to me and she was like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a producer, or do you want to be a reporter? And I said, I want to produce. And she was saying, you know, you're a good writer. You should sit with the producers. You should ask questions. You should do this, that, and whatever. So I realized at that point, from moving from the noon shift to moving to dayside, I had got very complacent and very still, because I didn't want to meet the other producers or talk to them in that way. So that day I was like, okay. So I asked the 4 p.m. producer if I could sit with her upstairs. From then on, I started sitting with her upstairs every day. And I would also sit with the other producer who was helping me with my writing. I would sit with her during her show. I also started learning how to write different things within the show, such as setups, tosses, and teases. Because the only thing we were really writing as writers was like scripts for like different stories that happened. We didn't write setups, tosses, and teases. That was for the producer to write. I started practicing writing those, and that got me the attention of one of the executive producers on dayside. And then it got me the attention of the assistant news director, who started realizing, okay, you know, you're trying to learn how to do this, you know, that's really good, all of that. Throughout the whole way, I had producers helping me who I was working with. And eventually, it just came down to the fact that a producer spot had opened up on the morning shift because a producer was leaving. And it was going to be between myself and another writer. We were basically going to do a trial period as being a producer for a week, and they were going to choose between the two of us of who was going to get that position. So that's what they were going to do. So she did her trial period first during that week, and when I asked her about it, she was like, it was stressful, but it was good. And mine kept getting pushed back because that was around the time where Hurricane Irma was coming. So we were like tight in hurricane coverage. So there was I couldn't really learn because it wasn't a regular show. The shows were different because we were deep in hurricane coverage. So finally I was able to, I was gonna start it, but I didn't because we were still in hurricane coverage. And then I was told, one of the producers was like, okay, well, the assistant news director wants you to sit with me because, you know, she wants you to learn as much as you can. I knew that something had changed, but I didn't know what had changed. Come to find out, there was another opening on the morning show for a producer because another producer had left. So I finally got to do my training during that week, and it was very up and down because I was like, I kept messing up on certain things, but I was very proud of myself for how I was able to do it under high stress. And one day I was completely on my own and I did it myself. So come the next week, Wednesday or Thursday, I think it was Wednesday, I found out that I had got the position. And ever since then, I think it was October 1st, I started as a producer. And now we're in February, and I've been producing since October 1st. One thing that I will say is that I didn't think that I was going to end up in broadcast. I always figured that I'd stay writing in newspapers, and even though I still do freelance, I still do articles, all of that stuff, I just didn't think that I'd end up here. Something that I feel is that for some reason, Allah, God wanted me to be here. And I feel that deep within myself, but I don't know why. I don't know why I'm a producer. I don't know where I'll end up going or where I'll end up being, but we're gonna find out, inshallah, and we'll see what happens. But being a producer has forced me to use certain qualities that I typically shy away from. Things like being very decisive under pressure and having to make a decision because something changed during the show and you have to decide, what are we going to do? And I can't say that I fully developed that skill, but it's definitely better than it used to be. I would also say I have to talk loudly. I don't usually talk loudly, and I have to command the ship, even though I have a director next to me who really is telling everybody what to do. He's going based off of me, based off of my show. Like, I decide what the layout of the show is going to be based on what the executive producer gives me, and I put in who's going to read it in terms of which anchor's going to read it. I put in how we're going to get there, where they're going to be, what are they going to say, and my director basically tells everybody else what to do so that we can make it happen. And then if we get breaking news, then either my EP is telling me how to do it or I'm deciding how I'm going to do it. And that can be extremely nerve-wracking because you're on live TV, and any mess up, the whole city, the whole of South Florida is going to see it. So it's nerve-wracking sometimes. What I would say is, just from my experience, they say be prepared so you don't have to get prepared, and that is exactly the case, because I didn't expect for a position to open up as a producer. I knew that they didn't open up often, so I didn't know how long I was going to be on that shift. I didn't know how long I was going to be a writer before I finally became a producer, but I was preparing myself for the opportunity. The opportunity finally came and I was able to get it. Prepare yourself, even if you don't see the opportunity coming anytime soon. You never know. You never know what might happen. You might think things are set in stone, but they're really not, because God can make a way for you at any point, at any time. And you just never know. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know who it's coming from. You just know that it might come. And when it comes, you need to be prepared, because if you're not, then you're not going to get where you want to go. You're not going to get what you want. For me, that was a real blatant, clear-cut visual and experience of the fact that you have to be prepared for what it is that you want. Another thing that I would say is, even if you don't think that you belong in a place, if you're there, then show up. Show up. Because for me, I will be at my station approaching a year in March, and everyone else, pretty much before they became a producer, they'd been there for a few years. So there are some things that I'm catching up on because I hadn't been there. And some days it's like, man, why did they decide to make me a producer? Why am I a producer? Am I good enough to do this, that, whatever? And just doubting yourself when you make those mistakes. But something that I remember is, these are not people who just got into the news industry. They know what they're doing. We hope that they know what they're doing. And they took a chance on me and decided to put me here. Not only that, but God allowed it. So it's like, stop doubting yourself. Okay, you made a mistake. Okay, fine. Move on, learn from it, and do better. And that's that. And now, to the extent where, if I make a mistake or if I do something and people are looking at me some kind of way, or it's like, I may not be the best right now, but I promise you, just give me some time and I will blow your mind. Like, that is my thing right now. Where you are right now is not your end all be all. It's not your end all be all, and you'll be in a better position soon, especially if you work for it, if you work at it. So anything that you do in life, anything that we do, I have to remind myself that it's a constant battle to do better, and you're fighting against negative forces in order to bring yourself to a higher level. So that's pretty much the story of how I became a TV news producer. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.